They took him through Redwater Creek at dawn, hands bound, dust rising from the wheels of the sheriff's wagon. Boone Calder's head was lowered, but not in shame. His eyes were fixed on the date, counting each hoofbeat as if to measure the distance between the life he'd known and the one about to be stolen. From behind the lace curtain of a fine ranch house, Eleanor Whitcomb watched in silence. She was a new bride then, her dark hair pinned high, her gloved hands clutching the sill. As he passed, she slipped a small loaf of bread onto the step. He saw it, lifted his gaze just once to meet hers, and the sheriff's boot shoved him forward. By nightfall, Boone was gone from Redwater. Years passed. The town forgot his name, but not the story. Then one hot afternoon, a man came walking down Main Street, beheaded, shirtless, his shoulders carved by labor and his face shaded by the brim of a battered hat. Boone Calder had come back. He did not pause for the stares that followed him, nor the murmurs caroling in his wake. He walked until he reached the Whitcomb Ranch gate, where a woman in a burgundy dress stood like a sentinel. Eleanor was no longer the blushing bride in the curtained shadow. Widowhood had sharpened her features into something proud and self-possessed, her posture a thing of unshakable poise. Yet Boone saw the same eyes, steady and unreadable, as if she could see both the man he was and the boy he'd been. He took off his hat, the sun catching in the scars along his forearms. "Let me stay and work for you," he said, his voice a low, deliberate drawl. The air seemed to hold its breath. "I'll even give you the family you've lost." Gasps whispered through the street. Someone dropped a crate in the general store. Eleanor's gaze did not falter. "My ranch doesn't keep men who bring trouble," she said evenly. Boone's stance didn't shift. "Then I'll be the man who mends it." A gust swept through, rattling the corral fence. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled, slow, promising, and both of them knew the sky was about to change. Boone rose before the first smear of light touched the horizon, his boots whispering through the dew-slick grass as he hauled buckets from the well. He moved with the steady rhythm of a man accustomed to earning his keep with his back and hands, mending sagging fence lines, splitting wood until the grains sang beneath the axe. Eleanor watched from the upper porch, her gloved fingers resting on the rail, her face unreadable. She never lingered long enough to be caught staring, yet he felt her presence like the warmth of a hidden fire. The town did not stay quiet. By the second week, whispers had spread from the mercantile to the saloon. Men tipped their hats but watched Boone with the sidelong wariness reserved for a coyote too near the chicken coop. The widow Whitcomb, they said, had taken in a giant with no shirt, no shame, and no place in decent society. One evening, a banker rode out to her ranch under the guise of discussing land boundaries. Over tea, he spoke of Boone's past in hushed tones, warning of the damage to her reputation. Eleanor's reply was cool, unshaken. "Reputation doesn't mend fences," she said, setting down her cup. That night, rain hammered the roof. Boone stood in the barn doorway, shirt damp against his skin, when Eleanor appeared with a lantern. The shadows threw her face half into darkness. She asked him, without preamble, what had truly happened the day they took him from Redwater. Boone's answer came slow and measured. He had been framed by a foreman jealous of his skill, the stolen goods planted in his bunk. No one spoke for him. No one except, in a way, bread on the step, eyes that did not look away. For a moment, silence was the only sound between them, broken only by the hiss of rain on the barn roof. Then she asked if he would fix the cradle in the attic, the one her late husband built and she could never bring herself to sell. Boone nodded, understanding more than her words could say. When she left, the lantern's glow faded up the path, and Boone stood in the dark barn, knowing he was no longer just working for a wage. He was repairing something far older, far more fragile. The fire came without warning. One moment, the late summer dusk was soft and gold. The next it was split by the crackle of dry timbers and the furious glow beyond the paddock. Boone was already running, his shadow lunging across the yard, boots pounding the earth. Eleanor stood frozen on the porch until the wind carried the sharp scent of burning hay and the panicked scream of a horse. It was her stallion, her husband's bloodline, the last of its kind. Boone vaulted the fence, vanishing into the smoke. The air shimmered with heat, sparks leaping like fireflies from the inferno. He found the stallion thrashing in its stall, eyes rolling white. Talking low, he wrapped the reins around his forearm, took the burn of the rope, and hauled the beast into the night. By the time he staggered back into the yard, his shirt was scorched, the skin on his arms raw, and his breath ragged. Neighbors had gathered, drawn by the light and the danger, their faces pale in the flicker. Eleanor was already moving toward Boone, skirts trailing ash. She dropped to her knees beside him, the polished dignity she wore like armor slipping away as she pressed her gloved hand to his cheek. Her voice was hoarse but steady. "You've done enough. You stay here now. Do you hear me?" He tried to answer, but she was already turning to the crowd. "This is my home, my land, and my choice," she called, her gaze locking on the banker among them. The murmurs broke apart like smoke and wind. No one spoke against her. Days passed, the ranch quieter, the air carrying the faint scent of charred. Boone worked at a slower pace, his burns wrapped in linen, Eleanor walking beside him more often now. They did not speak of love or promises, but when evening came, they stood together by the fence, her hand resting on his without hesitation. And if you asked anyone in Redwater Creek what changed, they'd tell you the fire took more than a barn. It burned away the last of the distance between a woman bound by loss and a man once bound by rope. Some bonds, after all, are worth forging in flame.